it's Paul Ryan. Last week I examined how much of the top two clusters of music shoppers contributed to that $15.4 billion of streaming revenue in total, and then the overall spending, the 18 plus billion. And I know that there were a lot of numbers there, but what that exercise allows for now is I can now look at anything I want to within the recorded music industry, from the revenue going to DSPs, each DSP, to genres, to anything else we want to look at. I now have that magic bullet. So today I'm going to start with genres. That same $15.4 billion of streaming from the angle of genre share. What share of the pie does country music receive? What about pop? What about rap? What about? A separate report by Statista, they title it Statista Consumer Insights, back in 2023, indicates that rock alternative indie music is a favorite, a quote-unquote favorite, of 45% of Americans. This is not spending. This is just a non-committal favorite kind of music. So that figure it includes duplication with other genres. So I would consider that as reasonable, but soft. It gives you sort of a maximum potential for that type of music. By comparison, country music is a favorite of 42%. So 45% for indie rock, 42% for country. And going back to the previously discussed Nielsen definitions would mean that respectively 114 million and 107 million Americans consider those two as favorites, respectively. Pop, classical, and dance follow in that Statista report. One important point to note is that today, people move around a lot more than they used to. That Statista report allows for more than one favorite. So given the duplication of mentions in the study, it makes some sense, since typically people today are going to listen and stream to more than one type of music. But what about the revenue pie? For example, what is country music's actual dollar share of that pie? To derive the percent revenue by specific genre, I'm going to look at a couple of reports. Specifically, I relied on a report done by Harmonious Music Industry, 2022, and Statista's Favorite Music Genre Report, 2023. I'd add that using these definitions, pop, R&B, country, it's kind of tricky because there's boundaries that cross over from genre to genre. It's not really a hard boundary. It's kind of soft. So a lot of songs are going to cross over from one genre to another. But hopefully the definitions I've got here will provide a general idea of how large each genre is in terms of revenue, overall revenue. And again, I'm going to usually only use the streaming total of $15.4 billion in 2026 as a guideline. We can do this also for the all music, the $18.4 billion. But for now, I'm going to just stick to streaming. So looking at those two studies, the top genre is R&B and hip hop at 28.2%. That's followed by rock, 19.5%, pop, 12.9%, country, 7.9%, Latin, 4.7%, dance and electronic, 3.2%. We've got Christian and gospel at 1.9%, world music at 1.8%, children 1.3%, jazz 1.1%, classical 1.0%, and all others at 16.5%. Just a huge chunk. And my acoustic country, no doubt, and bluegrass is in that all others. But let's just look at these top dogs for a minute. I mentioned R&B hip hop at 28.2%. Well, we can now expand that to actual dollars. $4.3 billion streaming. R&B hip hop, I'm saying $4.3 billion in streaming. Rock, $3.0 billion in streaming. Pop, $2 billion in streaming. Country, $1.2 billion in streaming. So those are your top genres in terms of actual revenue in streaming, or if you wanted to expand it beyond streaming to all music, it'll be the same percentages against the 18.4 billion. As I mentioned, acoustic styles of music are going to reside in that all other 16.5 or $2.5 billion classification. And again, our top ones going back, these are the top genres, were R&B, hip hop at 4.3 billion, rock at 3 billion, pop at 2, country at 1.2. Those are the top ones. Next week, we're going to dig deeper. We're going to use the tools that we've developed, the statistical tools, and we're going to take a look at what I'm going to call gatekeepers versus algorithms. Have you ever driven a car in the Northeast or an area with a large population of squirrels running on the roads? If so, maybe you can empathize with the song, I Don't Break for Squirrels. I intended this song to be a humorous look at the road hazard these animals can cause. Hope you enjoy it.
I was fussing with a switch on my new ride. The ragtop curled up and locked behind, thinking this just seemed like one fine day. I took a left, turned on to Matthews Way. Suddenly I hit the brakes real hard. A squirrel danced in front of the car. Steered away and swerved, I tried to miss, but spun around and wound up in a ditch. I don't break for squirrels and the dangerous games they play. They run, stop, turn, stop, run the other way. It happens in a second, the choices aren't so great. Skid around and hit some tree, or accelerate. As I sat there in a daze beside the road, realized that I was not alone. Other cars were scattered across the lanes. Everything had stopped on Matthews Way. One car was over on its side, another dripping green stuff next to mine. People looking angry, numb and frayed, checking out the damage on Matthews Way. I don't break for squirrels and the dangerous games they play. They run, stop, turn, stop, run the other way. It happens in a second, the choices aren't so great. Skid around and hit some tree, or accelerate.
The chapel is full of Britt and Freddie's friends and families. All of her life, Britt has dreamed about a huge wedding, but life's in the way of that now. She had recently taken on a new job at a vet hospital, and Freddie, well, he's heading back out on the road soon. So big weddings and big honeymoons going to have to take a back seat for now. But today, it's all about the wedding. Freddie wears a rented tuxedo. His best man is Jenks, and Bob Hackett's also in the groom's party. Without his cowboy hat, Hackett looks older and thinner somehow, and he had a soft but persistent cough going on. Britt's bridesmaids are mostly classmates from Cornell. Freddie was introduced to them last night thinking, funny, that part of her life is a total blank for me. But then he realizes that it worked both ways. Britt has only met Hackett once, and other than by reputation, stories, and maybe passing each other in the high school hallways years before, she really doesn't know Jenks much at all. The honeymoon will be a whirlwind one-day affair. Today is Saturday, and Britt has to be at her new job on Monday. So while it's not the most romantic getaway, the couple intends to make the most of the weekend. Immediately after the wedding, the plan is for them to drive to Buffalo. It's got a zoo there that Britt has always wanted to see, and they'll do the mandatory newlywed visit to Niagara Falls. Freddie even hopes to squeeze in a visit to the Niagara Falls Observation Tower. It overlooks the falls, and Freddie believes that the bubbling energy of the cascading water offers a parallel to the bubbling energy and future of the couple's lives. For that night, their home will be the Buffalo Marriott downtown. And as trips go, this is as unglamorous as it can get, but it's practical. It'll do. They can make up for lost time later on. Hi, it's Paul Ryan here. Thank you so much for spending your time with me here on Sound Threads. I hope you enjoyed the show and hope you'll join me next week for another edition of Sound Threads.